Oh God. How could this have happened to you? Guys, it's awful! Brook lost his afro! No, the dream is over, guys. I'm sorry, Brook. Now you're just a regular run-of-the-mill skeleton that you just see walking around on the streets. Actually, think about that, really. It's kind of disturbing when you think about it, but all human beings are really just walking skeletons with skin. So next time you're in a crowd of people, just imagine you're surrounded by a bunch of skeletons, yeah. Oh, but man, Brook, why? I mean, this is like if Zoro lost his Wano Ichimonji, or if Nami got a breast reduction, or if Sanji waxed his eyebrow. It's just he's lost his identity is what it was. It's okay, though, Brook. It's alright, buddy. Because you know why? Because you still got your soul! I wish I had a guitar to strum every time I said soul. Oh wait, I do. Hasn't been tuned in like 7 months, but soul! Oh yeah, that's a tasty lick right there. Also doesn't help much that I lost the guitar pick, so I'm literally using a Pokemon badge right now for that, but soul! Soul, no me. Okay, so today's video is going to be about Big Mom's fruit. Kind of weird I haven't talked about this one yet, but she is a Yonko, so she has a pretty OP fruit. And in some instances, you gotta really wonder, like, wow, all of these Yonkos seem to get their hands on really strong fruits. So is it just like, you know, when they were younger and they managed to consume the fruit that really helped them become a Yonko? Like, here's an example. Would Whitebeard still be a Yonko if he never consumed the Gura Gura no Mi? The answer is, of course, yes, of course! Why wouldn't he be? He's Whitebeard! For God's sake, you know? Even if he didn't have the ability to physically cause earthquakes with his fists, he could still somehow create earthquakes with just his voice and his stash alone. It could make it work, right? But you have to wonder about that, right? You know, like if Big Mom never had the power of the Soul no Mi, and she never had the power to create homies and everything, she would have still been a ridiculously strong pirate. There's no question about that. But would she have risen to Yonko status? It's interesting. Same thing with Kaido. When did Kaido eat the dragon fruit? We don't know. We'll probably find out at some point. But the origin on how Big Mom consumed the Soul fruit is it was originally held by Mother Caramel, who was the motherly figure, of course, to Big Mom and all the children at the Lamb's house. And when Big Mom was 6 years old, well, things got a little out of hand. You know how those birthday parties get. You know, you got a giant croquembouche cake, and there was cream just everywhere, and everything kind of went fuzzy for a little while, and then after you wipe away all the filmy cream off your face, your entire family is gone, and you suddenly have the ability to animate flowers into abominations. Yeah, that's just happens. That actually happened with me on my 8th birthday, but 6th birthday, I mean, some people develop earlier than some. Okay, fine. Yeah, so, no, this is the one instance of cannibalism leading to the power of devil fruits, because, you know, how it works is you eat a devil fruit, and the essence, or I guess the soul of a devil fruit is inside your body, which gives you the power and also the weaknesses of not being able to swim. But then after you die, that fruit's essence leaves your body and then finds the nearest fruit to become the next vessel, and then, you know, when the next person consumes the fruit, the essence transfers again, and the cycle continues in perpetuity. However, one way that you can kind of just skirt around that reincarnation is just eat the person that previously had the fruit, because if the essence of devil fruits can only exist in humans, or not just humans, because animals could eat fruits too, as well as objects, but that's kind of a different deal. I'm sure Vegapunk's going to explain that. But if the fruit's essence needs a container, and the container has to either be, you know, a living being, an object, or a fruit, you know, you could just get around that by just consuming the previous container, and you become the new container. Not something I think a lot of people would want to do, but it is a possibility. And in the case with Big Mom, when she was 6, she consumed Mother Caramel, and so that container was destroyed and a new container was around it, so the fruit just automatically transferred to her. It didn't get sent back to a fruit first. Now, the Soul fruit, as I said, kind of OP. It's very similar to the Kage no Mi, in that the Kage no Mi and the Soul fruit both involve ripping out a type of essence from a human being and throwing that essence in something and making that animated. In the case with the Shadow fruit, it was ripping the shadows out of a living human or a living skeleton, whatever you happen to have on standby, and then putting that into a human corpse, or a marionette as they call them on Thriller Bark, and it will animate that corpse into a zombie that will obey the user of the Kage Kage no Mi, in this case Moria, dutifully, no matter what they command. There's a little bit of a grace period where the shadow and the body have to kind of synchronize, but after they get to that point, then they'll obey the master no matter who the original owner of the shadow was. Okay, and then you have the soul fruit, which does something similar, except it rips out the soul or the life essence of a human. I say life essence because Big Mom with this power can accurately rip out the life of a human being. So, we're going to do this with Death Note logic. If you're 30 years old and you're going to live to be 85, you have 55 years of your life left. I'm assuming Big Mom's ability and her purview kind of like allows her to know how much life essence you have left in your tank. Maybe she can just look at you, or maybe if she touches you and she gets a feel for your soul, she can tell. She's like, oh yes, your battery is at about 55% capacity right now. I know exactly how much time is left until you croak. Naturally, she can then rip out increments of life energy from you. So just like, okay, you're 30, you're gonna live to your 85. Let's say you do something to cross her and she wants to punish you. She can rip out, all right, I'm gonna rip out 30 years of your life, so now you only have 25 left to live, and she can do that, and she takes that life energy, and she can do any number of things with it. She can use it to create homies, which are basically souls inhabiting inanimate objects as well as animals, pretty much anything except a living human or a dead human, alright? Because that's kind of the purview of the Kage Kage no Mi. So she can't take a soul and throw it into a corpse and animate the corpse, because that would cross over into the realms of the Kage Kage, and no two devil fruits can have exactly the same ability. You could get devil fruits that have very similar abilities, but no two that are exactly the same. Like, for instance, on Thriller Bark, that tree we saw, like that grotesque tree that was animated using the Kage Kage no Mi? It's like, well, isn't that what the soul fruit does? You can take Big Mom, we saw that in the Seducing Woods, and with King Bomb, she takes a soul, throws it into a tree, and makes a homie out of the tree. Well, didn't we see that on Thriller Bark? Well, kind of, because that tree had fragments of human parts, embedded into it by Hogback. I don't exactly know what they were thinking. I think Hogback was drunk that day, honestly. He's like, Kishi Shishi was Moria's laughter style. What was, Fossa Fossa Fossa? That was Hogback's. He gets drunk, he wanders into the lab in the day, he's like, oh, Fossa Fossa, what are we doing today, Sindri? Oh, let's take a tree and then let's freaking graft a human face to it. Takes a hammer and nails and just starts pounding it in, and is like, alright, give me a shadow! Okay, I made this thing, So, still technically fragments of human corpse, so that's why the tree got animated there. So they can't have the same ability, right? And likewise, Moria cannot take his shadows and throw them into flowers and make the flowers animated, okay? That's Big Mom's purview, okay? And it seems like with animals, this is also the soul fruit, because she took Randolph, who was just a normal bunny, gave him the powers of the soul fruit, and he became like a knightly bunny with like a lance and a tunic and everything and a cool little hat. So that's something, that's cool. She can also send out fragments of her own soul represented by these like large blobs of like just black mass, and they don't really have, any kind of distinguishing features. They just have creepy eyes and a mouth, and what their job is to go out all over Totland and collect various taxes, or like it's fragments of people's soul that live there, or life force, in order to continue living in the island and also provide more sustenance to the homies and everything. Because I would imagine how it works is, let's say you take 20 years out of a human and throw it into a homie, that homie only has 20 years of life to it before it'll die as well, unless, you kill it beforehand, like, because they can still die. Like we saw Beige with that door homie that was blocking the door to the tea party, and the door saw too too much, so he capped it. He iced that door. That door's not going to be saying anything anymore, right? So you could still kill them that way if you just destroy the vessel, right? But they still have a limited amount of life. So in order to keep Totland flourishing and to keep all of the homies active, and more importantly, to keep Big Mom's spy network active, because having us like homies all over the place, literally eyes everywhere you look, very, very handy when you want to keep an eye on all of your, your subjects. When you're running a kingdom that spans like 35 islands or something, and if anyone's like beginning to dissent or planning a revolution or something, it's handy to have a little barrel homie off to the side like, oh no, I need to tell Big Mom immediately, So, yeah, keep that in mind. But yeah, these black masses of Big Mom's soul, they basically just rip out like little fragments. I think it's like the toll is like 6 months a year or something, like 6 months of your life, or maybe it's 1 month every 6 months. That's what it was. 1 month every 6 months. And that might not seem like a lot of time in just one instance, but you also have to keep the people living in Totland. You have to keep them alive, so you can't extract like multiple years, because then they might die sooner. So you gotta like just take a little bit out, and there's thousands of people that live all across Totland on the different towns and islands. So 1 month from each individual every 6 months, that's 2 months for each person a year, that adds up over time. And considering Big Mom's been ruling over this place for literally decades, she probably is in no shortage of soul power, you know what I mean? So, yeah, and like I said, the purpose of the homies is just to keep track of everything. There's a lot of references to, like, fairy tales and, like, Alice in Wonderland references and things in Totland, and it's pretty obvious that the talking homies and the furniture and everything are references to Beauty and the Beast, which I never saw. Not the Disney version, not the animated version. I saw a live-action French version of Beauty and the Beast, which was very beautiful, but I never saw the actual Disney movie. I have missed a lot of Disney movies. In case you're curious, here's the list. But on top of just creating homies to be a spy network and also to fight on your behalf, and just they completely bend to Big Mom's will, so if Big Mom wants to summon the Seducing Woods to help her with something, she can just command them to do that, like, Seducing Woods, stop those intruders, and they'll immediately go all bloodthirsty and attack, right? Normally, though, she can just kind of delegate the powers, so she has, like, King Bomb, who is, like, the boss homie of a bunch of homies. She has the chess soldiers that all make up different chess pieces, like the pawn, bishop, rook, knight, queen, and king, and they all have ranks that you can imagine. Like, they mostly run the Tart ships, because the Tart ships are like the naval unit of Totland that just go around and police everything and make sure to keep out like other pirates and stuff, and usually you'll have like the chess soldiers working there, and it's handy because, if they get destroyed, you can always kind of just make more, because you have, like I said, no shortage of soul power at the end of the day. So, oh no, a Tart ship got destroyed, and we lost like 10 pawns, 3 rooks, and a freaking knight. It's not a big deal. You just fashion more of them. It's like probably like Big Mom has like a finster kind of character, like from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, that like creates the putties and then she just throws the soul into, make this table a homie, and then she just throws the soul in there, and that's what she does with most of her day, right? So they're expendable soldiers is the point of it. Now we find out a little bit of a weakness involving the soul fruit when Brook shows up, because Brook literally has the power of soul through the Yomi Yomi no Mi, or it's his own soul that revived, and because it's in the living world now, there's a lot of energy that has to tether it into this realm, right? And so, as long as you're not talking about some of the high-grade homies that were created with, like, Big Mom's own essence, she created Prometheus and Zeus and Napoleon, and I have Zeus right here. Zeus isn't looking too good, though. Zeus, last time I brought Zeus out, it looks like he lost an eye. He's spent too many nights in Nami's sex dungeon, So, yeah, she makes these own homies with her own soul, so they're really strong, and they're, like, tethered to her, and they're kind of like the next class of homie. But when it comes to just, like, gathering up the souls of Totland and just taking them, not her own soul, just other people's souls, and just throwing them into, like, other objects and the chess soldiers and everything, Brook's power can actually be devastating for that, because whenever he strums his soul guitar, that horrible sound just rips the souls right out of whatever homie is immediately surrounding him, and that made him very devastating, and managed to actually hold his own against Big Mom herself for a while. Brook, you don't get enough credit, alright? Even though he didn't win, he went toe-to-toe, not just with a Yonko, mind you, but with, now mostly it was Zeus and Prometheus that were doing, the majority of the fighting. It wasn't like Big Mom was getting up and personally trying to grapple with Brook. she was mostly sitting down and just commanding her two other homies. But still, that takes balls, Brook. That takes strong, plentiful balls. And he doesn't even have balls. So what the hell are you gonna do, right? I mean, just like, it's Brook. He's the freaking master of this, right? Master of soul and master of seducing 68-year-old pink-haired women. Yeah, that's Brook. Okay. So, right, I said, but if he tried the same thing with Prometheus and Zeus, it wouldn't work, okay? Because it's Big Mom's own fragments. And this is a big deal why Nami currently has Zeus under her employ. Because it's a fragment of Big Mom's soul. So I wonder if Big Mom ever gets within the vicinity of Zeus, could she just command him to come back? Because you'd figure, like, with most homies, it's like an immediate, like, master relationship where it's just like, you do what I say and they do it. The case with Zeus and Prometheus and Napoleon is they're kind of, they have like their own independence a little bit because they're Big Mom's own souls. So you'd think that she would have more control over them, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like you're creating like more or less like independent clones of yourself when you take your own soul and split it. That makes more sense. So that's why, while Big Mom was doing her cake rampage, Prometheus and Zeus were kind of off to the side, and he's like, oh, we gotta hurry to Big Mom, and then Zeus is like, but I like to eat these weather balls. I'm like, would you come on? So they're kind of having like a Laurel and Hardy kind of routine off to the side when you think they should be completely subservient to Big Mom. And they are. Like, if Big Mom gives them an order directly, then they'll obey it. The reason that Nami kind of got Zeus is they kind of like separated Zeus from Big Mom and sliced him up and weakened him and then stored him in the climb attack and then escaped. But I would still like to see what would happen if Big Mom regains her memories on Wano, walks right up to Zeus and is like, you get back here! Zeus would probably have to listen to her, right? But I don't like to think that's the case. I like to think, I want to see Nami keep Zeus and eventually learn how to ride him. That sounded wrong, but it doesn't. And then she could become like Son Wukong with the extending climb attack dildo rod and also riding around on a cloud. And then boom, Nami becomes Son Wukong. Boom, done. I like to think that's a theory that's very likely to occur. So, on top of just turning inanimate objects, living with like eyes and a mouth and being able to hear and understand and speak, it seems like it also modifies their biology or their original structure a little bit. Cause if Randolph was just a regular rabbit being turned into a homie, I mean, he got a little bit bulkier, and now he's a little bit more dexterous. He can actually wield a lance and things. The same thing with Napoleon. Napoleon was just like a bicorn hat, and now with the power of the soul fruit, he has the ability to sprout a giant sword blade just out of nowhere. Like, he could just extend it out of himself in a handle, and Big Mom can grab it and swing it. Not really sure what that's about. Maybe, like, was Napoleon like a sword to begin with, and maybe be given the powers of the soul fruit turned him into a hat? Or was he a hat that became a homie that is able to turn into a sword? There's a few questions with this, but it seems like, especially maybe if there's enough soul power input in a particular homie, yeah, you can modify more than just like, because every homie has eyes and a mouth. You're already modifying stuff with that. But it's like, hey, if you can give a tree a pair of eyeballs, why couldn't you turn a bicorn hat into a sword? Especially if it's your own soul in the process, right there. So you gotta keep an eye out on that. Also, Big Mom's mental state does seem to affect them, but not as negatively as you would expect. It's not like if Big Mom goes crazy in her hunger pangs, all of the homies, like, stop functioning. They still function, they're just a little bit, like, they act, like, erratically. Like, when they fired those cannonballs that were all homies, and they think, oh, that's a smart move, because they're, like, homing cannonballs. Get it? Like, so you fire a cannonball, and it's like, alright, we're gonna lock on to our target and attack, right? When Big Mom was in the middle of her hunger pang, those cannonballs were like, I don't know, where am I going again? I forgot where I'm going. And they're flying all over the place. So they still functioned as homies. They were still aware of themselves. It was just kind of like they were drunk or half asleep. They're just like, I don't know, or very forgetful. Like, where are we going again? What's the target? I don't know, over here? And then just splash in the water. So yeah, that's a negative. Although, we haven't really seen it function the same way like Sugar's fruit does, where if Sugar is rendered unconscious, all of the people she turned into toys immediately turn back into humans. Because Big Mom, I don't think, she was kind of in a trance when the caramel picture got shattered. She was in a moment where she was like kind of like reeling, like she wasn't properly knocked out, but pretty close to that. And then she went into her hunger pang rage, and after she ate the cake, she passed out and was like, I'm so happy. And despite all of those different changes with her mental state, the homies never became deactivated. It wasn't the same thing with Moria. Whenever Moria got defeated, all the shadows spewed forth from his gullet and just returned to their original users, right? So that honestly is probably the single best attribute of the Soul Fruit, in that it doesn't work like a keystone kind of effect where, the user passes out and immediately the entirety, all of the effects of the fruit that you've had just disappear. Because you can imagine how devastating that would be for Totland if Big Mom lost consciousness for some reason or another, and all of the homies became deactivated. All of the soul energy immediately left them and traveled back to their original hosts. Or like in the case with like Zeppo is Beppo's older brother who died when his life energy was removed. Maybe the life energy will just dissipate, or it will go back into Big Mom. But that's not the case, So that's a good thing, because that's a major problem with Sugar. It's just like, yeah, Doflamingo spent like over a decade building up Dressrosa and making it a country of toys and everything, and establishing this supremacy. Anybody that tries to go against me, I have them turned into a toy and bend to Sugar's whim, because they have a contract with Sugar. But all you need to do to get rid of all of the work that they've established in the last decade is just knock out Sugar. You maybe think of something similar to Big Mom, like, oh yeah, Big Mom's ruled over Totland for, I don't know, well, we saw her, the area where the Lamb's house was, where Mother Caramel was consumed, that was most likely like Whole Cake Island back like 60-something years ago, where she met Stroizen and everybody, and that's when she started her pirating career. But, maybe you could say she just founded Totland back then, in which case she's been ruling over it for like 60 years. But even if she didn't properly build it up to what it is now, let's say the last 30, 40 years, that's when Totland started to become really what it is right now. All the homies on all the 35 islands and everything, if she were to just, knocked out or something and just, woo, her entire empire's gone. Like, she might not even be able to hold the title of Yonko at that point. I mean, she probably could, because she still has all her children that are strong, but all of the chess soldiers and the biscuit soldiers, all of those guys just immediately drop and just, stop working. Also, biscuit soldiers, that's actually really clever. That's a perfect example of her combining her devil fruit power with another devil fruit power. So, what Cracker does is he creates his biscuit soldiers using his bisque fruit, and then Big Mom animates them into homies and uses them as sentries to patrol the island. These super tough cracker soldiers that are constantly patrolling the island, keeping an eye out for anything that are a little bit more beefy. They're like the tanky kind of, soldiers, and better than like the chess soldiers are. Oh my god, I just thought of this. You could make... I don't know, because I don't think World Seeker had anything involving Totland. Correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't played World Seeker yet. But you could easily make, like, an entire One Piece game. Like, an entire game focused on Totland, right? Like, you could explore the 35 islands. I think it's 35 islands plus, I think, Whole Cake Island, I think. It's like 36 total. Yeah, I mean, you could have the chess soldiers being, like, the enemies at the beginning of the game, like, defeat the pawns and then work your way up to rooks and everything. And then you have the biscuit soldiers that are, like, the tanks. I'm not saying it would be a very intricate game. It would just be, like, go to each island, defeat a bunch of people, and then defeat a minister at the end of it and work your way up to, Katakuri and Smoothie on Whole Cake, and then work you all the way up to freaking Big Mom fighting against with her homies. Like, I would buy that game. Just call it, One Piece, Adventures in Totland, and maybe you can expand upon a few other things. Like, maybe you could switch out with other Straw Hats. You could play as Jinbei, you could play as Nami, you could play as Carrot, you go Sulong or something. Yeah, I would buy that game. Screw it. Yeah, I'd do it. All right, you could have a whole little mini game with Pedro's sacrifice, like little mini game, like help Pedro light the sticks of dynamite. Like do. Oh no, you failed. He didn't. He fails. You failed. He lives, but you all die. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, you could do something with that. Okay, but yeah, what else about the soul fruit? I think I covered everything major. The homie creation and the ability to like summon swords out of hats and things are the main thing there. I'm kind of curious about this, Could Big Mom take the soul power and make her lifespan longer? Kind of once again going Death Note with it, with like the Shinigami writing in their Death Notes and gaining the life force. I don't think that's the case, because you'd figure if that was the case, number one, Big Mom would be living for thousands of years, with all the soul power she's collected over the years, and give a little bit to the homies of the island, keep them active, but, she has accrued so much power, she would be living for probably easily over 1,000 years with all the energy she has, right? Also, I would figure maybe with more of this life energy, with the soul energy, if she could do that, if she could add it to her own, it would maybe make her a little bit younger, not older, because she seems to age like everybody else. Like, she's like in her 60s and she looks it, right? So you think if she had all this life energy, she would maintain a perpetually youthful appearance. So that doesn't seem to be the case. And I think, adding that aspect to it might make it kind of broken. And that might also be leading a little bit more into the Ape Ape no Mi's territory with the Eternal Youth operation, living, being young forever. If you could just, because you figure all that Big Mom would have to do is just go up to like a 20-year-old woman in Totland and just rip out her life energy and then put it into herself, and then she would become a 20-year-old woman and she would live and then take everybody else's lifespan. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. Kind of ridiculously broken if that was the case, but and even more so ridiculously broken if that power never leaves her, even if she gets unconscious, right? So yeah, that's probably not the situation there, but considering it's the whole point of the fruit is to rip out life energy, makes sense. Also, she cannot remove your life energy if you are truly, not afraid of her, or if you're very, dedicated to your, what's the best way for me to describe this? If you're very resolved, I'll use that word, resolved, okay? Because how she takes life force is, she can't just, go up to you and rip it out. She kind of gives you an option. She's just like, treat or life. Basically, do you want to give me your life force, or do you just want to die? And if they answer without true resolve, then she can't take your energy from you. And usually when she does that, the people are terrified, or at least a little bit scared of Big Mom when they're in, giant woman is in front of you, treat or life! And you'd be kind of terrified of that. But Jinbei, he was, very adamant, and Big Mom could not rip out his soul in the process. So, I mean, that's one way you can get around her, so she has to pose the question first. But, once again, doesn't really seem to come up, because it really did seem like Jinbei was more of the exception rather than the rule, because look at all the other people. And it's more like souls have to be willingly offered, in some way. She can't just rip them out. She has to either ask you the ultimatum and you respond, and then she rips it out, or the toll, the taxes of Totland is people just go up and then willingly give their soul over, 1 month at a time. That's also another way to look at it there. So that is kind of like a weakness, but not a weakness not everybody can exploit. I'm sure Luffy and Zoro could exploit that, because if Big Mom never did the treat or life thing with Luffy, but if she did, I'm sure Luffy would have also been very resolved, and or you could have just been you could just also answer neither, probably just neither, and be but you're really resolved, and she can't rip out your soul if you're very dedicated to the cause, or you have very strong will. So that's the situation there. But yeah, other than that, I don't think there's really anything else much to talk about. Big Mom is currently in Wano, and she has amnesia, and it seems like Napoleon is inactive at the moment. Even Chopper brought this up. He's like, that hat, it used to talk and turn into a sword, and it's kind of just been sleeping this entire time. So this implies, once again, another change of Big Mom's mental state. Doesn't mean that the soul inside of Napoleon or the other homies have just stopped functioning. It just maybe means that her immediate homies have been dormant, except for Zeus, because Nami used Zeus. So it's a little confusing. It's I'm sure the homies back at Totland are still operational like normal. Napoleon is dormant, but he still is a homie. Zeus is still active under Nami's employ, and we don't really know what's up with Prometheus right now. So it's a little bit confusing. It's the mental state of Big Mom does not directly affect all the homies in the same way. At the very least, you gotta give me that much, right? So that's the situation there. Napoleon, I thought, might awaken Big Mom to her memories, but that doesn't seem to be the case right now. More than likely, she might just get knocked on the head in a fight with Queen or somebody, and then that jogs her memory, or she eats all the Oshiruko, and that maybe makes her remember the cake, and then that triggers her memories, and then she remembers that she's Big Mom. Maybe. But, yeah, we'll definitely see more of the Soul Fruit later, and we might even get to see a Big Mom v Kaido match at some point during Wano. So we'll see maybe what the full battle, because if she's gonna fight against Kaido, and if she has her memories back at that point, she's gonna have to bust out all the stops against that dude. You know what I mean? If they're going for a full out battle. So we might see her like erupting into that crazy like fiery hair fusion where she like fused with Prometheus and everything, and her soul power is just radiating like she's going Super Saiyan food. Ah, Super Saiyan cake! This is Super Saiyan cake 2! You know, like, yeah, we can see that maybe. We'll see where that goes. And Kaido's going dragon, wrapping around her like, Rrr! It'd be like a kaiju battle, and I'm looking forward to that. All right, well, everybody, hope you enjoyed. Take care of your afros. I don't know if you have afros, but if you have an afro, please take care of it. You don't want to end up like Brook here. Techie 101 signing out. Ah, it's beautiful.